You know, what is going on here? Say h5, he can just take again. You know, have I really got anything here? Can I try and get this pawn back with advantage? Well, actually, there's rook b5 here, so this could be even tricky, you know, to get this pawn back. Bishop c6, rook f5. I don't know, it's tricky. It's advantage to white unless there's anything, you know, really concrete. So it's a bit of a bluff attack, and I think h4 is fine, but after rook dg8, really, I was concerned about this, you know, knight b3 takes a5 stuff, and I was actually thinking at this stage, okay, the opponent's got double pawns, but because of this constant threat of c5, I really don't want my king here. I'd rather have it over here on g7. So I was actually making a way for my king to come over to the king side, and he played such a shocking move now that I actually spoke aloud, and obviously you shouldn't do in chess matches, say anything to the opponent. So it was a bit naughty, but he played g3, and I exclaimed, "Oh, you've trapped your bishop! You can't do that," or something. I said, and I realized, of course, that was you know, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't say anything during the game. But anyway, the game continued. So king d8, so knight b3. So now there's a concrete threat of knight takes a5 and rook takes b7. So I moved the bishop actually to c6 because I want to use this pawn to be annoying to the opponent, to sort of have to waste time with it, you know, being concerned about it. If he ever plays d5, I can go back with bishop to a8. I mean, if we look at this actually, although he gets this nice square here for the knight, I've got e5 and c5 now, so I can either do knight e5 or knight c5. And the double pawns wouldn't be going anywhere with c5, so I wouldn't mind that. Okay, so rook a1 was played. I was getting a bit cheered up with the position, so king e8. The king continues its escape from the queen side. And I'm trying to make all the while c5 less effective. So at the moment I'm starting to be less concerned about c5 as a possibility. So king f8. And now, actually, as I'm moving the king towards this way, the evaluation's going down. It's now 0.13. So, you know, I think Ribka thinks the position is getting safer for black. Rook fd1, and I play h5, just so I don't need any pieces protecting g4. Bishop f1, and I thought he might have an idea. You know, he's trying to victimise this pawn with later d5 at the right moment. But at the moment, the queen and knight is sufficient to protect it. And if I play d5 and I move the bishop back and knight d2, I've always got knight c5 to protect it. So the pawn's not a problem at the moment. I played anyway bishop a8 in preparation. I didn't want to be surprised by d5. Because here I was thinking that if king g7, I thought d5 might be a little bit awkward in this position, with the potential for the knight to come here and then here, forking, you know, king and queen. So I didn't want this extra, you know, gain of tempo. But I don't think this is harmful. Bishop b7, knight d4, as long as I do something about not being forked. So say, okay, Ribka's idea, queen e8. This isn't that bad for the same reasons as before, that once I've got access to these two squares, my problems are sorted, black starts to be better. So bishop a8 anyway, just trying to be a bit cautious. Knight d2, and now I applied, you know, the Nimzowitsch, you know, classic idea. I really want to stop c5 for good. But no, with his blocked-in bishop anyway, you know, he made this whole c5 plan far less effective in any case. But just to be on the safe side, I played c5, which, I don't know, maybe it's not that brilliant. But it does provide some interesting possibilities later by playing c5. You know, the threat of dissolving the double pawns is a constant threat. But he plays knight b1 now, so that's an interesting maneuver. So knight a3 to b5, trying to exploit this b5 weakness. So king g7, knight a3. Now bishop c6. So I'm either tempting d5 or I'm prepared to swap my bishop for this knight. So he plays rook ab1. I play rook c8. And already I've got this idea that, well, I want to get my rooks towards the centre to be flexible. If they're in the centre, then they can react. They can protect d6 if necessary, and stuff like that. So queen b3. Now I play rook hd8. So now the rooks are over there. It means I can play queen e8 without affecting their communications. That they're connected now with each other, and also the queen on e8 means that this a4 can be victimised with the bishop and queen battery. So rook dc8. Queen e8. So he's tempted now to play knight b5, and I just take it off. And I was very surprised he didn't play queen takes b5. I think technically that's best. Rybka prefers that only marginally, though. I mean, my thought on it is that by taking the queen, this will be exposed, as a potential weakness, which means there's a piece tied up to protecting it. The way he took it was with a takes b5. And now, I've got no problems. And the evaluation is actually slightly better for black now, 0.04 in black's favour. But really, what's the plan here? I was a bit confused at this point what actually my concrete plan was going to be. So I first played queen e6, though, trying to provoke d5, because I really want to get this e5 square. But I'm putting pressure on c4, and that actually becomes my plan now, to just double up rooks behind this pawn, as though I'm going to sacrifice later something on c4. So we have rook a1, rook c7, starting to double up the rooks. Rook a4, so I've doubled up the rooks. But still, I wasn't sort of convinced. Now, I need a bit more magic. And this is where, the theme of the video comes in. The magical idea I need is, why on earth, right, would I want to abandon the Nimzovich restrain blockade destroy strategy? Because, in other words, lifting this blockade or dissolving, the double pawns. Why would I want to do that? It seems such a paradox. Especially the opponent has the two bishops, although this bishop's a bit dead, obviously. Dramatically dead. But why would I, in theory, want to undouble the pawns? And there's a classic game where pawns were undoubled, which I recommend you check out. It's Lasker versus Capablanca. Lasker, in this Roy Lopez exchange version, he doubled Capablanca's pawns, then later played this controversial f5, giving him a weak e4 pawn on the back, it's a backward pawn, because it was on the segment file. But the idea was later bishop f4 and bishop takes d6, and he undoubled, Capablanca's pawns. But the thing is, then later that meant that a knight got to e6, so he sort of translated one set of weaknesses into another. So I had that kind of analogy here, that hold on, it's a bit analogous to that game, because I want to swap these weaknesses for something which I can actually exploit. I want to try and make them exploitable.